They thought we were simple, dangerous, maybe, but in a crude, unsophisticated kind of way. That was their first mistake. The second, telling us to our face. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood tall in the center of the Alliance Council chamber, surrounded by beings that barely tried to hide their smug expressions. The room was a marvel of alien engineering, spires of transparent crystal twisted high into the air, levitating platforms floated with no visible support, and light refracted off every surface, as if the walls themselves shimmered with condescension. It was meant to overwhelm, to project superiority. It didn't. Chen had grown up in the submerged megacities of New Shanghai, where pressure, darkness, and innovation coexisted in an endless dance of survival. She'd been breathing manufactured air since childhood, walking hallways built to withstand tectonic shifts, and working in environments that could crush a weaker species in seconds. Compared to that, the pomp of the Alliance was a hollow spectacle. High Counselor Vex Thor's voice slithered through the chamber, each syllable soaked in superiority. As I was saying, Ambassador, the Galactic Alliance must decline Earth's request for full membership at this time. Your species lacks the necessary sophistication. Chen didn't flinch. Her face remained calm, serene even. Her neural interface implant recorded every word and gesture, beaming data back to Earth Command in real time. She didn't need it to understand the weight of this moment. Earth had been preparing for exactly this reaction for 10 years, ever since that first stuttering signal made contact from a starship that wasn't ours. We understand, High Counselor, Chen replied smoothly. Her tone was warm, almost deferential, her smile gentle. Earth will continue operating under provisional membership, as before. Our only wish is to contribute meaningfully to the galactic community. Around her, the delegates relaxed visibly. This was what they expected from a Death-world species: compliance, gratitude even. They didn't notice the way Chen's smile never quite reached her eyes. What the Alliance had failed to understand, what they hadn't even bothered to investigate, was that humanity had already surpassed them in ways they couldn't imagine. While the rest of the galaxy still tore through space using brute force FDL drives, our ships folded space quietly, slipping between dimensions. While their weapons boasted raw, destructive power, ours bent the laws of physics. While they obsessed over hierarchy and control, we adapted and evolved in silence. Earth hadn't applied for membership because it needed the Alliance. It was a test, a trap even. And they'd walked right into it. Back aboard her vessel, hidden in a lower orbit above the galactic capital, Chen initiated a secure transmission to Earth Command. A quantum encryption protocol shimmered across her screen. Phase 1 complete, she reported. They rejected us. Exactly as projected. Fleet Admiral Jackson's hologram appeared, his expression unreadable but his nod approving. Good. How long until they start trying to guide our development? Chen's eyes flicked across a projection of Alliance policy protocols. 6 months. They'll begin with expansion restrictions. Probably target the Orion Arm. Perfect. That gives us time to position our assets. Keep playing the part, Ambassador. Let's hope they never give us a reason to show them otherwise. But Chen wasn't holding her breath. The Alliance had a long, ugly history of civilizing less advanced species, enforcing regulations that favored core worlds, exploiting resources under the banner of mentorship, and quietly absorbing potential threats before they grew into real ones. It wasn't a question of if they'd overstep, only when. So for months, humanity played along. They agreed to every limitation with a smile. No new colonies, of course. Limited trade of advanced tech. Understandable, restricted access to sensitive regions of space, a small price for peace. Meanwhile, behind the curtain, humanity's real work accelerated. Quantum computing systems slipped past Alliance firewalls undetected, siphoning data and planting subtle backdoors. Stealth observation posts were established in dimensional pockets invisible to standard sensors. And deep within the asteroid belt, under the guise of simple mining platforms, something much bigger was taking shape. A new class of starship. Not just faster, smarter, invisible to known detection methods, powered not by combustion or plasma, but by a phantom drive capable of rendering entire fleets undetectable. Dr. Marcus Rivera, head of Earth's Special Technologies Division, submitted his weekly update to Chen with something dangerously close to excitement. Phantom drive trials exceeded projections. His report read, "We've achieved full cloaking across all test vessels. They're still looking for tachyon traces while we operate in another layer of reality entirely." Chen forwarded the file to Earth Command with a single line, "We'll be ready." Every Alliance patrol that hovered too long near Earth's solar system became a source of valuable data. Every treaty and restriction imposed revealed more about their internal politics and vulnerabilities. Every smug smile aimed at humanity only added fuel to the fire. The Alliance believed they were watching a primitive species stumble toward modernity. In truth, they were giving us everything we needed to surpass them. And soon, they started to get nervous. Chen's next transmission to Rivera was short but urgent. Proxima Centauri system new checkpoint established. They're scanning all human vessels for restricted tech. Rivera's brow furrowed. They're testing us. Worse, they're hunting for an excuse. Earth intelligence had already flagged the shift in behavior. Alliance ships were lingering longer, intercepting supply runs, probing deeper into human territory under the pretense of security. It wouldn't be long before they uncovered something suspicious like the mining operations that didn't mine anything valuable, but instead manufactured high-precision components for something called Project Prometheus. Scattered across human space, thousands of seemingly random outposts were actually part of a massive machine, one so advanced the Alliance would never believe it came from a developing civilization. But together they formed the backbone of the quantum grid, a network capable of manipulating space and time itself. "We're at 82, Rivera reported. "We need 3 more months." Chen's face tightened. "We might not have 3. The Alliance was voting next week on a proposal to place permanent security bases in human territory. Under the guise of mutual defense, of course. If they succeeded, they might stumble onto the quantum nodes before activation. And if they did, they wouldn't wait. They'd strike." But Rivera wasn't out of options. "There's something we've been testing," he said, eyes locked on the swirling probability streams on his holoscreen. "Quantum mirages. We can show them what they expect to see: basic mining operations, harmless emissions, standard power signatures. It's not just cloaking, it's illusion." Chen leaned forward. "You're saying we could hide the entire grid in plain sight? Not just hide it, disguise it so well they'd defend it for us, thinking it's their idea." Chen didn't hesitate. "Do it. And Marcus, be careful. If they realize how far ahead we really are, they'll try to wipe us out before we can finish." He finished grimly. "I know." He looked at the data again and laughed softly, bitterly. "The irony is, if they'd treated us as equals, we probably would have shared it all. But they hadn't. And now it was too late. On Earth, deep beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, Rivera gave the command. Across human space, the illusion deepened. Quantum fields shifted. Reality twisted. To Alliance eyes, Everything looked exactly as it should. Primitive, predictable, harmless. And at Earth Command, Fleet Admiral Jackson watched the latest intelligence report. The Alliance still classified humanity as a developing civilization with limited technological capabilities. Jackson smiled. They had no idea what was coming. While the Alliance congratulated itself for keeping Earth contained, humanity was doing what it had always done best, working quietly in the shadows, turning pressure into power. The restrictions had come quickly after Earth's rejection from full membership. No new colonies without direct approval from the Council. Technology exports capped at a fraction of their actual capabilities. Travel limits imposed in areas rich with potential, especially in the Orion Arm. On paper, the reasoning was sound to protect young civilizations from expanding too fast. Earth's official response had been a polite nod and a dozen carefully worded press releases. Behind closed doors, they laughed. Everything was going exactly to plan. Dr. Marcus Rivera stood in the core of Earth's most advanced research facility, 30 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean floor. Around him, quantum probability streams danced like liquid starlight across curved holoscreens. To most other species in the galaxy, the lab would have been a death trap. The sheer pressure alone could crush their bodies. But to humans, this place was just another frontier, and Rivera, one of its most brilliant architects. "Run the cloaking simulation again," he ordered. The AI parameters confirmed. "Focus, power signature masking." The simulation lit up, showing the path of an Alliance patrol that had swept through Sol only yesterday. Their vessels broadcasted energy signatures like fireworks at a parade, blissfully unaware that they were being watched from a dozen hidden stations scattered throughout the asteroid belt. They never saw the observation posts. They didn't even question the odd gravitational distortions trailing behind their own ships. Every photon they emitted was being analyzed, cataloged, and used to fine-tune the cloaking systems of humanity's phantom fleet. Rivera's communicator chirped, a direct link from Ambassador Chen. "How close are we?" she asked, skipping any kind of greeting. "The phantom drives are operational," Rivera replied, adjusting one of the probability streams with a quick hand motion. "We've reached the point where we can move entire battle groups without leaving so much as a gravitational ripple." Jen nodded but didn't relax. "That's not why I called." "No," Rivera said. "It's not." He watched her face flicker in the hologram, sharp, focused, concerned. "The Alliance just set up a checkpoint near Proxima Centauri," she said. "They've started inspecting all human vessels for restricted tech." Rivera's fingers stilled. That wasn't just suspicion anymore. That was action. "They're testing us," he said quietly. "They've picked up chatter from our deep space mining ops. They don't know what we're building out there, but they're starting to realize something doesn't add up." Rivera exhaled, pulling up the diagnostics from Project Prometheus. The so-called mining platforms weren't just gathering minerals, they were building. Slowly, quietly, piece by piece. Each platform contributed to the construction of something far beyond any single ship or weapon. Thousands of autonomous machines, each disguised as something ordinary, were laying the foundation of the quantum grid. Individually, the pieces looked innocuous. Power relays, cooling systems, industrial arms, waste processing units. But together, they'd form a lattice of unimaginable potential. Once activated, the grid would give Earth control over the very structure of space and time, at least within their territory. "Current assembly status, 82%, Rivera reported. The upcoming vote in the Council would determine whether the Alliance could install permanent military bases in human territory. For security reasons, naturally. But everyone in Earth Command knew the real purpose: surveillance, control, a show of force meant to remind Earth of its place. If those bases went active, it wouldn't take long for their techs to realize what humanity had really been up to. If they detect the grid, even partially, Rivera began. They'll preemptively strike, Chen finished. Silence stretched between them. Then Rivera's eyes narrowed, ideas clicking into place behind them. There might be another way, he said slowly. We've been working on a new application of entanglement theory. It started as an experiment in stealth tech, but it has broader potential. I'm listening. We can project quantum mirages. Not just hide what we're doing, reshape what they see entirely. Make a battlecruiser look like a cargo freighter. Make a construction hub appear like a weather station. Chen raised a brow. Can you do that at scale? Rivera nodded. We're already applying it to a few outposts. If we extend the bandwidth and calibrate the entanglement anchors, we can overlay false data on their scanners in real time. Make them believe they're looking at exactly what they expect to see. Do it, Chen said. Start now, but keep it tight. If they figure out how far ahead we really are, they'll panic, Rivera said. And panic makes people dangerous. He paused, then smiled grimly. Funny, isn't it? If they treated us as equals, we might never have built any of this. Chen nodded. Instead, they looked down on us, tried to leash us. They gave us every reason we needed. As soon as the call ended, Rivera turned back to his work. Commands flowed from his console to the automated facilities across human space. The Mirage protocols activated. Entangled particles linked the camouflage networks, creating holographic lies indistinguishable from truth. What the Alliance saw wasn't reality. It was a carefully choreographed performance designed to confirm their own assumptions. Meanwhile, the real infrastructure continued to grow. At Earth Command, Fleet Admiral Jackson stood in the strategic center, reviewing Rivera's latest update. The grid is almost ready, he said aloud. Faster than expected. Quantum integration efficiency has increased by 7.3. The AI confirmed. Most components are now disguised as waste processors, comm relays, or modular habitat units. And the Alliance? They suspect something, but they still classify Earth as technologically limited. Jackson allowed himself a quiet chuckle. Let them. Over the next few weeks, the Alliance began to press harder. Their patrols grew bolder, lingering longer in human space. They started demanding logs, inspecting transports, accidentally jamming comm signals during routine cargo runs. They framed it all as oversight, as protection. Earth nodded and complied publicly. But beneath the surface, humanity had moved into the final stages of preparation. The quantum grid's final sections were slipping into place, hidden inside what looked like abandoned refueling depots and defunct orbital factories. Fleet movements were rehearsed in silence, with entire battle groups shifting across sectors undetected, thanks to phantom drives. And then came the incident that changed everything. A message from Hope's Promise, a research station orbiting Europa, flashed across Earth Command's secure network. Situation: urgent. Alliance vessel demands boarding. Energy signatures detected. Rivera was already in motion. Initiate Mirage Protocol Omega, he ordered. Divert their scans. Feed them the basic med lab layout. But something had changed. The Alliance ship had upgraded sensors, ones that could partially detect quantum state variances. The old tricks weren't working. And then the unthinkable happened. The Alliance ship fired. It wasn't meant to destroy, just a warning shot, a pulse meant to disable critical systems. But it hit one of the station's quantum field generators. The result wasn't just catastrophic, it was unprecedented. The cascade surge that followed ripped through the station's lower levels, killing 23 people in seconds. 5 of them weren't even human. They were visiting scientists from Alliance worlds. Hope's promise was burning, and humanity's patience had finally run out. The moment Earth Command confirmed the deaths, the decision was instant. "Activate Omega Protocol," Jackson ordered. Across human space, the hidden became visible. The pieces of the grid began humming with dormant energy. Technologies that had remained cloaked for years now revealed their true nature: ships that bent light, structures that warped probability, systems that didn't obey the normal laws of physics. Ambassador Chen was in the middle of yet another condescending Alliance session when she received the signal. She stood, cutting off Vextor mid-sentence. "This session is over," she said coldly. The chamber fell silent. Humanity is withdrawing from provisional membership, effective immediately. "You can't," Vextor sputtered. 23 researchers are dead," Chen cut in. 5 of them were yours." Her voice had changed. No longer gentle, no longer playing the part. "You treated us like children playing with dangerous toys. You never asked why a species that survived a death world would choose to appear harmless." She paused. "You have 1 hour to pull all military forces from human space. And if we don't?" Chen's smile was colder than space. "Then you'll see what we've really been building." Hope's promise was never meant to be a battlefield. Orbiting Europa's frozen surface, the station had been carefully designed to look like a second-rate research outpost: aged metal plating, outdated comm arrays, slow-turning solar panels. Everything about it screamed low priority. That's how they wanted it, hidden in plain sight. Inside, though, history was being made. Dr. Elena Santos stared at the glowing field in front of her, where quantum threads shimmered in the vacuum of artificial space. Her experiment had succeeded. Consciousness had just traveled instantly across the galaxy, transmitted without delay using quantum entanglement. No lag, no degradation, no traceable signal. The Alliance was still using conventional FDL comms that took hours to bounce data across sectors. Humanity had just made that obsolete. "Biomem interface is holding steady," her AI reported. "Quantum stability field is within safe thresholds." Santos smiled and leaned closer. This wasn't just science. It was transformation, true post-light speed communication. A technology that could upend everything from warfare to diplomacy. And the Alliance could never know. She barely had time to breathe before the station's proximity alarm went off. "Alliance vessel approaching. Identification code. Military inspection unit," the AI announced. "Third time this week," Santos muttered, already initiating the camouflage protocols. To Alliance scanners, Hope's promise would show only basic medical experiments, maybe some biosample storage, a few weak life signs. Enough to look alive, but nothing to suggest how advanced the work really was. "Quantum mirage engaged," the AI confirmed. Then came the voice, clipped, sterile, and the scream. "This is why we let you watch. You saw what we wanted you to see. You assumed we were reckless, desperate, that we needed your guidance. You never stopped thoroughly uninterested in diplomacy. Attention, Human Research Station. We've detected unauthorized energy signatures. Prepare for immediate boarding and inspection." Santos froze. That wasn't protocol. The Alliance had always been aggressive in their oversight, but this was new. They usually made a show of asking permission or citing subsections of membership regulations. Not this time. This wasn't suspicion. It was a warning. "Double-check the field harmonics," she said urgently. "The mirage should have masked everything. Field is stable, the AI responded. However, there is a 4-7 deviation in scan absorption levels. Santos checked the readings and felt her stomach drop. They're using new sensors. Her heart pounded as she activated the emergency quantum link to Earth Command. The Alliance ship wasn't bluffing. It had already charged weapons. There were over 200 researchers aboard, including several non-human scientists from other member species. Any strike risked breaching the station's quantum containment systems. This is Dr. Elena Santos of Hope's Promise. We are conducting authorized medical research under Provisional Agreement Section 7. Any hostile action could endanger innocent lives, but the Alliance commander didn't hesitate. Your species has repeatedly demonstrated an inability to comply with technological containment protocols. We are authorized to neutralize potential threats. Brace for interdiction. Santos barely had time to shout a warning before the first shot hit. The energy beam was meant to disable, not destroy, but it struck the station's primary quantum generator. And that was enough. A surge exploded through the lower levels. Quantum fields, once carefully tuned, went wild. Containment broke. Space twisted. In the chaos, containment doors sealed. Emergency escape pods launched. Fire suppression systems kicked in, but it was too late for 23 people. 5 of them were Alliance citizens. Santos watched from the command deck as the holographic displays blurred under emergency protocols. Upload everything to the grid, she told the AI. All experimental data, consciousness transfers, the whole quantum log. Upload complete. Quantum link established. Earth Command confirmed. Santos didn't know if she would survive, but Earth would. And now, the line had been crossed. The transmission from Hope's Promise hit Earth Command less than a second after it left. Fleet Admiral Jackson was already reviewing orbital satellite data when the notification appeared. The message was simple, brutal, undeniable. They fired. We've lost 23. 5 of theirs. He looked at his staff. Initiate Omega Protocol. Full activation. No one asked for clarification. Across human space, systems that had been silent for years began to wake up. In the shadows of Jupiter's moons, in the abandoned shells of asteroid mines, inside the very walls of refueling stations and cargo depots, everything lit up. The quantum grid, the network Earth had spent over a decade building in secret, roared to life. Hidden power cores surged. Reality anchors spun into phase. Gravity wells bent slightly under their own manipulation. The illusion was ending. On the Alliance capital world, Ambassador Sarah Chen was still seated before the Council when she got the encrypted transmission. One glance at the data told her everything she needed to know. She stood. Calm, collected, done pretending. This emergency session is over, she said, her voice cutting clean through the noise. High Counselor Vex Thor blinked. You do not have the authority. We do now, Chen said flatly. Effective immediately. Earth is withdrawing from the provisional agreement. You can't simply 23 people are dead, she said, her voice rising. 5 of them were your citizens. Your forces fired on a peaceful research facility. Your patrols have harassed our ships, violated sovereign space, and ignored every diplomatic channel we've offered. Gasps echoed. Protests rose. Chen didn't flinch. You looked at a species that survived the most hostile world in the known galaxy and assumed we were backwards. Containable. You never once asked yourself why we chose to look harmless. One of the council members barked out. Is that a threat, Ambassador? No, Chen said, her voice razor sharp. It's a warning. You have 1 hour to withdraw all military assets from human space. After that, we'll remove them ourselves. You're bluffing, Lexthor said, rising from his platform. Your fleet is primitive compared to ours. You couldn't. Who said anything about fleets? Chen interrupted. She gestured to the chamber around her. Did you really believe we spent 10 years just accepting your rules? We studied, we learned, we built. Every restriction you placed on us gave us exactly the time we needed. She turned to leave, then stopped. 1 hour, use it wisely. Back on Earth, Admiral Jackson stood at the helm of the Quantum Command Center. Around him, human commanders and AI interfaces coordinated in silence. "Status?" he asked. Dr. Rivera appeared via quantum transmission. Grid at 100%. All nodes synchronized. All nodes synchronized. Reality anchors are stable. They're exactly where we want them. Jackson looked at the tactical map. Alliance fleets were already mobilizing 9,000 warships, the most powerful force in the known galaxy. Let them come. The quantum grid hummed to life, and the countdown began. The Alliance responded exactly how Earth predicted they would, with overwhelming force. 1,000 warships appeared across human space within hours of Ambassador Chen's declaration. The fleet was a show of pure intimidation: massive carriers, long-range weapons platforms, and high-mobility fighters blanketing entire star systems. Each ship gleamed with energy, their cores glowing with the signature blue of brute force FTL reactors. They were armed, angry, and utterly certain of their superiority. But they were too late. On the surface of Earth, in the heart of Quantum Command, Fleet Admiral Jackson stood before the central tactical display. Dozens of projections lit the room: fleet positions, power signatures, gravitational fluctuations, and, most important of all, the status of the quantum grid. "Final checks," he ordered calmly. "Grid is fully synchronized," came the response from Dr. Rivera, who appeared via quantum holofeed from his deep ocean lab. "Reality anchors holding. All systems green." Jackson took a breath, then gave the order Earth had waited over a decade to hear. "Activate the grid." Across human space, the lie fell away. What the Alliance thought were ordinary mining platforms, communication arrays, or aging refueling depots, every one of them shimmered, shifted, and revealed their true nature. These were not passive installations. These were the nodes of the most advanced spatial manipulation network ever created, the quantum grid. The moment it activated, reality itself responded. On board the Alliance flagship, Supreme Commander Zixtal watched in disbelief as the tactical data on his screen began to collapse. "Report!" he barked. "Unknown interference," an officer stammered. "Weapon systems offline. Targeting arrays scrambled. Engines functioning, but FTL output minimal." "What do you mean, minimal?" Zixtal hissed. "I mean, we can't jump, sir." Then the broadcast came on every channel, in every language, to every Alliance ship simultaneously. It was Ambassador Chen. Her voice was calm, clear, and absolute. "For years, you've restricted our technology, blocked our growth, monitored our every move as if we were dangerous children." Her image appeared on every view screen, standing in front of Earth's emblem, framed by the glow of the grid pulsing behind her. "Today you learn what a species from a death world is truly capable of." She nodded once. The second phase of the activation began. There was no explosion, no blast wave, no glowing beam of death. Instead, the laws of physics quietly shifted. Alliance weapons, finely tuned to rely on specific physical constants, simply stopped working. Their power cores fizzled under recalibrated energy thresholds. Their smart targeting systems failed to lock onto anything at all because the quantum grid was rewriting the rules within its field of influence. Supreme Commander Zixtal's voice cracked as he shouted, "What have you done?" Chen didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stated the truth. "We changed the rules. Human ships, once dismissed as outdated and underpowered, began emerging from what appeared to be empty space. They hadn't cloaked, they had shifted phases, operating in quantum layers Alliance sensors couldn't even detect. For years, the Alliance had watched them, studied them, taken comfort in their apparent simplicity. That had been by design. You've seen only what we allowed you to see." Fleet Admiral Jackson transmitted from Earth. Every ship, every station, every piece of tech built to look primitive. Easy to dismiss, easy to control. That illusion is over. The Alliance fleet, the once dominant force of the galaxy, was paralyzed. They could move, communicate, even power their systems, just not fight. Not in any meaningful way, and Earth hadn't fired a single shot. But it wasn't just a demonstration of power. Humanity had one more card to play. In Earth's backup quantum command facility, Dr. Santos initiated the third phase. The communications network, believed by the Alliance to be little more than a planetary relay system, suddenly linked every human vessel, station, and facility into a single consciousness-sharing lattice. A live coordination network. Every ship moved as one. Every commander knew what the others knew. There were no delays, no miscommunications, just a perfect, synchronized web of awareness. Jackson turned toward to ask why a species from a death world played dumb for 10 years. In the Alliance Council chamber, every delegate was watching, some in shock, others in quiet awe. Chen looked directly into the camera. "Your hour is up." With that, Dr. Rivera activated the final protocol. Across Alliance space, every hidden weapons cache, every classified base, every undisclosed installation suddenly became visible not just to Earth, but to every species in the galaxy. Sensor data was released across the interstellar network. Maps, locations, schematics, proof of manipulation, domination, and exploitation that the Alliance had buried for centuries. "We could destroy your military capability," Chen said. "Easily, but unlike you, we understand what power means." The quantum grid pulsed again, and the Alliance ships, now helpless, found they could move again. But only in one direction. Designated exit vectors lit up in front of every vessel. "Leave," Chen said, "and you can preserve the illusion that you're still in control. Stay, and we'll show you just how much more we've been hiding." There was no debate, no counterattack. The Alliance fleet began to retreat. It wasn't a battle, it was a reckoning. The mighty ships of the Alliance drifted backward, tails tucked, pride shattered, as human vessels held position without moving an inch. It was the kind of silence that said, "We didn't want this, but we were ready for it." In orbit above Europa, the wreckage of Hope's Promise still floated. Soon, quantum engineers would rebuild it not as a disguised station, but as a true research center. One that would revolutionize not just human science, but interstellar civilization. The message had been received loud and clear. Humanity had never been the threat. They were the balance. They had shown the galaxy what Deathworlders could do, not with overwhelming violence, but with absolute control. And, more importantly, with restraint. Back in Quantum Command, Rivera turned to Jackson. "Should we tell them about the rest?" he asked. Jackson shook his head. "No, let them wonder." The truth was, the quantum grid was only the beginning. They had other technologies, deeper capabilities. ways to manipulate the very flow of time, of thought, of consciousness itself. But those would stay hidden. For now, the message was enough. Across every species' skies, the grid was now visible soft pulses of light that shimmered like spiderwebs through the stars, beacons of change. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, hope. One standard galactic month had passed since the event the galaxy now called the Quantum Revelation. The echoes of what humanity had done, what they had revealed, were still rippling through every corner of known space. The Alliance Council chamber remained visually unchanged. Its towering crystal columns still caught the light in majestic refractions. Floating platforms still hovered above the marbled floor, but something fundamental had shifted. The atmosphere. Gone were the smug expressions, the polite arrogance, the practiced superiority in the tones of delegates from the core worlds. In its place, quiet, cautious respect, and for the first time, the council chamber felt equal. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before them again, just as composed, just as confident, but this time, no one interrupted her. No one dismissed her words. She didn't need the quantum grid humming in the background anymore. She had their attention. "The restructuring proposal is straightforward," she said, her voice carrying with calm authority. "The age of single-species dominance is over." The room remained still. Chen continued. "The new galactic cooperative will function on principles of shared advancement, mutual respect, and transparency. No more forced hierarchies, no more technological suppression disguised as guidance. Every member species will have equal access to scientific knowledge and developmental support." High Counselor Vex Thor, the same alien who had once smugly rejected Earth's full membership, sat several rows back. He looked visibly smaller now, humbled, and when he raised his translucent hand, it trembled slightly. "And the quantum grid?" he asked, his voice no longer patronizing but uncertain. "It remains active?" "Yes," Chen replied, "but not solely under human control." That answer sparked murmurs. Chen nodded and raised her hand to silence the chamber. "Humanity has no intention of becoming what we once opposed. We're not here to replace the Alliance's dominance with our own. We're offering partnership, not superiority. Oversight of the quantum grid will be multinational. Joint research centers, open access to data, and rotational leadership." The message was clear. Earth wasn't interested in control. It was interested in collaboration. But it was more than just words. In the wake of the grid's activation, the galaxy had already begun to change. The first cracks in the old system came days after the revelation, when hidden records were leaked, proof of years, even centuries, of suppression. Dozens of species previously labeled primitive had actually developed revolutionary technologies that the Alliance quietly shut down. Resources deemed scarce were found hoarded in secret depots. Planets stripped bare in cooperative mining operations were revealed as victims of sanctioned exploitation. The quantum grid hadn't just changed space. It had changed perspective. Dr. Elena Santos, now the head of the newly founded Quantum Research Initiative, worked tirelessly from Earth's orbital facility, overseeing the safe rollout of technologies once hidden away. The miracles came quickly. Medical centers across the galaxy were being upgraded with quantum-based healing systems, able to regenerate tissue, reverse cellular decay, and in some cases, eliminate disease entirely. Worlds plagued by slow FTL communication were now connected by instantaneous entangled relays. Food shortages on outer rim colonies were resolved by transport tunnels that folded cargo between systems in seconds. Still, doubts remained. What guarantees do we have? asked a delegate from the former Alliance Inner Worlds, that humanity won't become the next dominant force, that this power won't be abused. Chen didn't answer with another speech. Instead, she signaled to Dr. Rivera, who stood quietly near the edge of the chamber. He nodded, then activated a display hovering in the center of the room. The quantum grid pulsed. Suddenly, every being in the room, regardless of species or physiology, felt it. A shift, a new kind of awareness. For a few moments, they could perceive quantum states as humans did. They could see the interconnectedness of space, the fragile strands of cause and effect that wove all reality together. They could feel the vastness of the universe, not as an enemy, but as a system of balance and ecosystem. Chen waited for silence to return before she spoke. This is how humanity sees the cosmos, not as something to conquer, but something to understand. We evolved on a world where everything tried to kill us, from the atmosphere to the predators to the microbes in the air, and we didn't survive through brute strength. She stepped forward. We survived by adapting, cooperating, thinking beyond ourselves, and most importantly, by knowing when not to use our strength. Back on Earth, in the Global Quantum Operations Center, Admiral Jackson watched the proceedings unfold via quantum relay. Around him, dozens of species were represented on screen, training together with human officers, learning the very technologies they once feared. They're adapting faster than we thought, his AI observed. Fear is a good motivator, Jackson replied, but hope? That's stronger. It wasn't just politics and military that were changing. Cultural transformations swept across the galaxy. Dr. Rivera had begun establishing quantum engineering academies on neutral worlds, open to any species willing to learn. Formerly isolated civilizations were sending their first students into orbit, eager to unlock knowledge they'd been denied for generations. Even old rivalries began to thaw. Species that had been bred into distrust, conditioned to compete for scraps from the Alliance's table, were beginning to collaborate. Joint projects emerged. Art, music, science, fusion in every form, and the grid helped it all happen. More than a network, it had become a mirror reflecting back what each civilization truly was, and what it could become. It wasn't just a tool for war. It was a blueprint for understanding. Of course, there will be challenges, Chen said, closing her address to the council. Change doesn't come easy, and progress never comes without resistance. She paused. But remember this, we pretended to be less than we were, not out of fear but out of hope. Hope that we wouldn't need force to earn your respect. Hope that power, when used with wisdom, could create unity rather than fear. She gestured toward the holographic grid, which now showed the entire galaxy, thousands of worlds linked by threads of light. This is our legacy, not control, not dominance, but illumination, not boundaries, but possibilities. As the delegates stood to vote, no one objected. No one abstained. The decision to dissolve the old alliance and form the Galactic Cooperative passed unanimously. In her private quarters hours later, Chen received a secured transmission from Earth Command. She sat in silence as the message loaded, then smiled softly. Phase 1 of the Renaissance is complete, she reported. They're ready for the next step. Admiral Jackson's voice came through a moment later. And the hardliners? They're coming around. It's amazing how perspective changes when you finally see the whole picture. Chen looked out her window at the stars beyond, where quantum streams now visibly danced between systems. For the first time, it didn't feel like humanity was preparing for war. It felt like they were building something better. We spent so long getting ready to defend ourselves, she whispered. and we ended up making war obsolete. Somewhere, on a small world that had once been told it would never amount to anything, a young being looked up at the sky and saw something new, lines of light crisscrossing the darkness, connecting every point of existence. For the first time, they understood what the humans had always known. The universe wasn't something to fight against. It was something to dance with. The galaxy had changed. Not with war, not with bloodshed, but with revelation. In the weeks following the formation of the Galactic Cooperative, peace held. The old alliance had officially disbanded. Its symbols removed from ships, government buildings, and public institutions. In its place, something new was forming, something built on respect, not control. For humanity, it should have felt like a victory, and it was. But not in the way anyone had expected. Admiral Jackson stood alone on the observation deck of Earth's Quantum Command Center, overlooking the curved blue of the Pacific Ocean far below. The grid was still active. He could feel it, humming faintly beneath his feet, rippling gently through the structure of the planet. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt thoughtful. A quiet transmission chimed. A familiar voice followed. "Still awake, Admiral?" Ambassador Sarah Chen appeared on the holopad beside him, her figure flickering slightly under the interference from the grid's ambient energy. "Couldn't sleep," Jackson replied, his hands behind his back. "Too quiet." Chen smiled softly. "You're not used to peace." "No," Jackson said, "I'm not." They stood in silence for a while. No words were necessary, just the quiet understanding of two people who had carried a world's burden on their shoulders. "I've been thinking about something," Chen said finally. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the Alliance had treated us differently?" Jackson nodded. "All the time. If they had seen us as equals instead of a threat. If they hadn't tried to limit our growth or control our path." She shook her head. "We might have built the grid with them. Instead, we built it to survive them," Jackson said. "And that's the difference, isn't it? We didn't want dominance. We just didn't want to be under anyone's boot." Chen's voice softened. "And when the time came, we showed restraint. That's what makes all the difference." They weren't the only ones reflecting. On a distant former Alliance world, one that had once labeled humans a dangerous curiosity, a group of children stood beneath the night sky, watching the quantum streams shimmer like veins of light stretching between the stars. For the first time in their young lives, they weren't told to fear what they didn't understand. They were told to ask, "Why do the humans see the universe that way?" one asked. A teacher smiled. "Because they learned early on that the universe doesn't care if you live or die. So instead of fighting it, they chose to understand it." It was a lesson the entire galaxy was learning now. And it wasn't just about science. In a research facility near Saturn, Dr. Elena Santos walked through a newly rebuilt version of Hope's Promise. No longer hidden, no longer disguised. It stood now as a symbol of renewal, scarred, but not defeated. She passed by a group of young engineers, humans and aliens alike, collaborating on a prototype for a next-generation quantum communicator. She couldn't help but smile. A few months ago, these species didn't even trust each other. Now they were designing technology that would define the next era of interstellar civilization. It hadn't come easy. It hadn't come without cost, but it had come. The truth was simple. Humanity had changed the galaxy by refusing to be what others expected. In the past, when species were labeled as Deathworlders, it was with a mix of fear and contempt, an assumption that surviving harsh environments made them savage, brutal, unrefined. That assumption had defined every step of Earth's early interactions with the Alliance. It shaped how they were treated, how they were watched, how they were underestimated. And that had been the Alliance's greatest mistake, because they had misunderstood what a death world really was. Yes, Earth was dangerous. Its storms, quakes, predators, and microbes could kill without warning. But that was never the whole story. Earth was also beautiful, diverse, resilient, full of people who dreamed, who created, who endured, people who knew pain but chose hope, people who could lose everything and still build again. It wasn't the danger of Earth that defined its people. It was how they responded to danger. That was what made humanity different. And that was what the galaxy finally saw. Chen had once said, "True strength doesn't lie in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to build." Those words had echoed through the chambers of power, through the halls of research labs and military academies, and now they echoed in hearts. Across hundreds of worlds, new partnerships formed between species that had once eyed each other with suspicion. Trade agreements were rewritten. Colonial rights were restored to worlds that had been stripped bare. Education systems shared curriculum. Research was pooled instead of hoarded. The quantum grid, the same tool that once threatened to become the galaxy's most terrifying weapon, had become something else entirely. A teacher, a bridge, a reminder. It reminded the powerful that power without wisdom leads to fear. It reminded the weak that strength doesn't always roar, it sometimes whispers, waits, and watches. And it reminded everyone that survival is only the beginning. The real challenge is choosing what kind of future to build once you've survived. Back on Earth, Chen stepped out of her private quarters and looked up at the sky. She didn't see stars anymore. She saw paths, connections, possibilities. And somewhere in her heart, she thought of all the times humanity could have lashed out, could have used its newfound advantage to conquer, to punish, to dominate. But it hadn't. Instead, they built something better, but because they remembered what it felt like to be underestimated, dismissed, cornered, and they had decided no one else should ever feel that way again. Epilogue. The lesson for us: it's easy to look at stories like this and see only the fiction, the advanced tech, the spaceships, the diplomacy among alien races. But beneath all that, the truth hits close to home. Because this isn't just a story about humanity in the future. It's a reflection of humanity now. In our world, people are often judged by where they come from, how they look, or how others define them. Assumptions are made, voices are silenced, potential is dismissed. But just like Earth in that council chamber, true power often lies where no one's looking, quietly preparing, learning, and waiting for the right moment to rise. The lesson is simple. Never mistake humility for weakness. Never assume silence means surrender. And never forget that the ones underestimated the most are often the ones who change the world the most. Not by force, but by showing a better way forward.